Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig.
And I'm Sam.
And we have something different and special for you guys. We are talking about the Horus Heresy. It has now launched for us. We did not get the box early like other channels. We are still small. Help us support us grow so we can get the boxes like this early. But Sam, as you guys know, is a big Horus Heresy player.
Yep. And
we have a dedicated community here, but they're still nowhere near our 40K size, so that's why we mainly focus on 40K. We're going to dive into 30K because this is a big stepping stone for 30K, bringing it into a new spotlight. Sam is going to do most of the talking in this, diving into every little aspect of I shouldn't say it's not a deep dive. It's more of an overview, thoughts. Maybe we'll touch more on it in other videos, but for now, just an overview of our thoughts of 30K to get them out to the channel.
Yeah.
So if that all sounds good, do like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios, not just 30K that'll be coming, in addition to other content, battle reports and other 40K normal stuff. And if you do want to help, there's a join button down below. Do help support our channel, become a member. You do get member exclusive perks like videos and a Discord channel. And members, thank you. You are really what keep us going more than anything else. So now, with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video.
This is a big weekend for me. I've been waiting for this for a very, very long time, ever since pictures of this box leaked, very blurry, out of focus. I have been waiting anxiously for the day that Games Workshop would finally decide to unleash this box upon the 30K community. And that weekend, that day is now.
It was, what, 6 or 7 months?
It was longer. It was at least a year. I could go back and check, but it's been agonizing every time Games Workshop has done like a preview event. And it's like, oh, 30K, and then everyone hypes themselves up. Like, we know the box is there, we know it exists, we've seen the picture. They go in to talk about it, and then it's like Kabanda, or some random character, or like Jagatai Khan. It's like, that's cool, but it's like, we want the box. We need the box. But now the box is here, and it's been really big. It's had a very positive impact, I'd say, on the 30K community. When I went out to pick up my own copy, so just so you all know, I got the box, I got both of the Liber Hereticus and Liber Astartes or Imperium. But the Traitor and the Loyalist book, plus the Kratos, plus both of the upgrade boxes for the weapons. I got to my store 13 minutes after they had opened, and by the time I checked out, they had already sold like 4 of these boxes to different people. So it wasn't just one guy came in and bought 4. 4 separate people came in and bought this $300 huge 30K box. So I think this is a new day for Heresy.
And I went to a different store for the day for a tournament, video coming on that, and I think they sold half of their boxes already on within the first time of it being there. So yeah, big stuff.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see this for 30K. So I've been playing it for a long time now, since my sophomore year or my junior year of college. And 30K, despite what many people on the internet have been trying to say, it was not a dying game. It had a very active and strong community, but that community was not growing for a multitude of reasons, mostly the barrier to entry because of Forge World resin costs. So this is probably the best thing that could happen for 30K, because now it's getting a massive amount of attention and the barrier to entry is lower again. It's the same thing as when Betrayal at Calth and Burning of Prospero were out, and you could get into 30K for like $120, however much those boxes cost. This one is a little more expensive, a lot more expensive. But you get a lot in it for what you get. It's for those of you who don't know, you get 40 Tactical Marines, a Spartan, which is like a bigger Land Raider, a Contemptor Dreadnought, 2 Praetors, and 10 Cataphracti Terminators. So just those Tactical Marines alone at current cost would be more than the $300 you pay for the box. So if you can Or no, not more, but
not
close.
More. Close.
And
yeah.
when you add everything else,
everything else, it's definitely
it's a good deal.
Substantial discount, and you get the rule book in there, right?
Yep. Rule book, dice. Oh, and templates and red whippy sticks for measuring.
Red whippy sticks.
Yeah. But I kind of wanted to talk today to, more about the box and also about the game. So you've played 7th edition 40K.
I have, yes.
But you've never played 30K.
No, I don't think I ever played a game of 30K. I've never had a Marine army outside of my Indomitus Primaris force, so
Gotcha.
it is new to me. I've tried many times to start Marines, and they never stuck to me, so yeah.
Sure. Well, the great thing about 30K, despite what the immediate from the outside looking in would have you believe, there's a lot more to it than just Space Marines. You have Mechanicum, you have Imperial Militia, you have Solar Auxilia, you have Knights, you have Demons, and then within the umbrella of Militia, you can do so much with that. You can do just about everything.
Anything you want.
Anything you want, but the focus is obviously on Space Marines.
Sure, yeah. I think for me personally, the other armies, you can do Custodes too, can't you?
Yes, and Custodes, I'm sorry, Talons of the Emperor, so them and sisters.
So those other armies are fine, they're cool, they add variety. I think the nice part about 30K, and my one reason why I would ever be drawn to it, is I think it is a very balanced game because it is the same thing fighting the same thing.
Yep.
With some variety, obviously, there are ways to definitely change your loadout so it's not just 9th edition tactical Marines fighting 9th edition tactical Marines. It's a lot more exciting than that. I know that. The tactical Marines actually feel meaningful in 30K, whereas they are the worst of the worst in 40K. But I do like the idea of it being a balanced force on a balanced force, Civil War style.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about, Tyranids coming in here with all these new rules or Eldar throwing things off for a loop. It is Space Marines in their glory, I guess.
In all their glory,
yeah.
Yep. And and it's also the nice thing too is that I haven't had a lot of time yet because I just got this box yesterday and I spent most of it building the Kratos and putting together those two guys. There's no codex creep. All the rules came out pretty much at the same time. So the rules for Solar Auxilia, Mechanicum, Demons, those aren't out yet. But the bulk of what people are going to be playing are these two Space Marine army lists with their Legion rules. And those all came out at the same time. So I think they're a lot more balanced against each other instead of like the steady progression of as codexes come out, they get more and more powerful.
And I do know from an inside source at GW, the other books will be coming later this year.
Yes.
So I had a little conversation with the guy in GW. So you do know those are coming. Those will be exciting. Interesting to see if they update any kits or do anything with that too, because kit updating was one of the biggest selling points of this version of. Is it a new version technically?
So it's essentially, it is a revised version of the Age of Darkness rule set. And for those of you who don't know, Age of Darkness is the official name for the Horus Heresy rule set.
Yep.
And it is 7th edition 40K with some tweaks.
Okay.
And so now the tweaked 7th edition has been tweaked again.
So this is like 7.3 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Version 7.3. So to give another overview, probably the biggest difference between what exists now in 9th edition 40K and 7th edition 40K is granularity. So instead of a vehicle now in 9th edition just has toughness, vehicles in 30K have armor facing, so each side of a tank has a different armor value, which you roll, you take the strength of the weapon, and then you roll a d6, and then you see if you can punch the armor, and then from there, instead of just having a pool of wounds, you have hull points, and there's like tables of damage that you can do to the vehicles. You can really get into the weeds on a lot of things.
Can you still blow off specific weapons and stuff?
Yep. Yeah. The damage chart is exactly what it was.
So they still have the thing. I always remember this from 7th edition. You always took the pintle-mounted Stormbolter because that would decrease the chance of your main battle cannon being destroyed. That's
Right,
still a
exactly.
thing?
Yep. So,
Okay.
so if you've got a battle cannon and a Stormbolter, if you just had the battle cannon, then a weapon destroyed, it's like there goes your main weapon.
Now you're just
now
good.
with the Stormbolter, it's
Yeah.
like 50-50. They just blew off the machine gun on top.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so, and there's more stuff in the profile. So models have an initiative instead of, well, they don't have an initiative.
They just don't have one.
Yeah, so that means 9th edition, when you charge, whoever charges first gets to fight first, and then you alternate activating and picking who gets to go. In 30K, you go by initiative stat. So whoever has the highest initiative goes first. So if an initiative 3 guardsman charges into an initiative 4 space marine, the space marine hits first. So that makes combat can be a lot scarier, and a lot of it focuses on like, okay, I've got a couple really powerful like power fists or power axes that are unwieldy and strike at initiative 1.
Right, that is a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure, like, I need to shield my good weapons with the chaff to make sure they don't just get ripped to pieces before they get to swing.
Do they still, I remember another rule, as it's slowly coming back to me, they had the rule where you have to, when models get killed in the shooting phase, you have to pull off the closest to the target?
I am pretty sure that is still a thing. Like
That's
I said,
cool.
I haven't dove into it deeply, but I'm pretty sure that's still part of it.
Nice.
So yeah, that was always like the verisimilitude of the rules. It's like as your tactical squad is advancing up the table and they start to get mowed down, it's going to be the front ranks that get pulled off.
So you have to put your special weapons and your sergeants in the back, potentially.
So they don't get, or if you, this is the one thing I really didn't like about 30K. You could always put your Artificer Armored Sergeant in front.
Right, he takes all the shots.
And he takes all the shots with his 2-up armor save. And whenever I tried to do that, I would immediately roll a 1. And whenever it happened to me, it would just be like 2-ups after 2-ups after 2-ups. Oh, that reminds me, AP is a lot different.
It's either now you punch or you don't.
Yep, exactly. So instead of having a minus AP, you just have a flat AP. So if your AP is 3, you ignore 3-up armor saves and anything worse. And then a 2-up armor save just gets to roll 2-ups for days until they roll a 1.
Nice.
So that's another big change.
Did they port 2 wounds into Tactical Marines for this role?
No, Tactical Marines have 1 wound, but Terminators now all have 2 wounds
Okay.
across the board.
That's
Because
nice.
that was another kind of a complaint. This was something that you saw. 30K lasted like a decade.
Yeah.
And so special Terminators that came out in the first couple books pretty much had 1 wound across the board, and special Terminators coming out towards the end of Age of Darkness 1.0 had 2 wounds, and there was a lot of bitterness.
Oh, they didn't change the old ones.
They didn't change the old ones,
Ooh.
but they've updated it now. So there's a lot that can be said about the rule set. It's very different from 9th edition.
Yeah, if you're someone who only has played 8th and 9th edition, it is, I don't want to say it's backwards, but it's just, it's very different.
It's a very different game. And it's also like if you played 7th edition and you have like a bad taste in your mouth, like you remember formations and all of the broken nonsense that just got abused in the darkest days of 6th and 7th edition.
Yep.
It's worth taking a look at Age of Darkness because a lot of the stuff that made 7th edition bad is not present or toned down in Age of Darkness, which I think is one of the reasons why it's such a solid game and has such a solid following.
And to go back to getting into this, this launch box, if you can still find one, is that a full 2,000 point army? Is that what is going to be standard? Or
yes,
'cause I know in 7th edition 1,500 and 1,750 were also equally as common as 2,000 points.
Yeah.
So
30K games skew larger, but this army this box is going to give you a good army because you get 2 HQs, a heavy support / dedicated transport with the Spartan, an elite with the Contemptor, an elite with the Terminators, and then 2 troop choices because 40 tactical Marines or however many come in the box. Yeah, 40 or 60, however many. Tactical squads go up to 20 in 30K.
But can you take them in 10s?
You can take them in 10s.
You could have 4 10-man squads there too.
So yeah, so this is going to be it's a good thing to split with a friend, or it's a great thing to keep for yourself.
Keep for yourself.
Which is what I'm doing. Yeah, to give a little spoiler for what I'm working on, at Craig's council, he told me I have enough infantry for my Iron Warriors, so I am going to be doing these guys as Ultramarines, so I don't go insane painting 60 more silver tactical Marines.
You already have 80 or so tactical Marines. I can't imagine doing more of them.
Well, that's the Iron Warrior way, overwhelming numbers and lots of tanks. I will keep adding tanks. The Kratos is going to be my Iron Warriors.
Okay.
Yep.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, we can talk about the models in it a little bit more since we have been going into the box a bit. We've gone over some of the basic rules. I think we've covered all the differences.
The major differences. Oh, the two things I did want to mention rules-wise. So
Go for it.
Yeah. Shame on me for forgetting. The two biggest changes from first edition Age of Darkness are the introduction of reactions as a mechanic and the removal of the psychic phase as a distinct phase.
Sure.
So the psychic phase is a little easier to cover. It's pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. If you're a psyker, you have psychic powers, and you now cast them either in the shooting phase or the movement phase. You don't have like a whole little mini game where you're rolling warp charges.
Yeah, that was an old thing. And
and it was a problem. It was probably one of the bigger problems in 30K, because essentially the only two factions that could interact with the psychic phase were Thousand Suns and Word Bearers, and everyone else was at the mercy of whatever insane
things they did.
Whatever insane things they did. I remember I played a game against a Thousand Suns player once, and he brought a Warhound Titan in a 2,000-point game, which I won't get into here. But he also brought Magnus and a squad of 10 of their special Terminators. And I remember I fired like 10 las cannons and 2 demolisher cannons at the squad of Terminators, and because of the amount of buffs that had been layered on them, I think I did like 1 wound to one of them. And I'm just like, all right, whatever, just kill my stuff. Fun, I don't care anymore.
I guess, yeah.
So sometimes you run into stuff like that, but I think they've worked to tone down the worst abuses of the psychic phase. And then reactions are the bigger change. So they're similar to stratagems, but you're limited to 1 per phase. So you get 1 reaction in your enemy's shooting phase, movement phase, assault phase, and whatever. And these are just things you can do in response, a reaction to what your opponents are doing.
Sure.
So like in the movement phase, a reaction would be to fall back as your enemy moves towards you. In your charge phase, Overwatch is a reaction now, and I believe you get to Overwatch at full ballistic skill. But of course, you can only Overwatch once, so you're not snap firing.
Not everything's Overwatching.
Not everything's Overwatching. And then armies also have unique reactions that are much more powerful than the basic reactions, but they generally can only be played once a game. And then and warlords will also interact with reactions. Like certain warlords will allow you to play an extra reaction in like the assault phase or the shooting phase, or they have their own unique reaction. So it's just another way of adding granularity to the armies.
So your opponent's not sitting there on their turn and taking it because they don't have stratagems. And I actually think, I will say, I think that is a plus side for me on 30K. I think the reaction, I would be totally okay if 40K in 10th edition went to this reaction type thing. Maybe they still do stratagems and they keep it, but instead of having, Tyranids have 30 stratagems or something, tone it down to 10 stratagems or something, 2 in each phase, then maybe have your universal stratagems, kind of like they already do. Yeah. Because those ones are fine and they're good for the game. But something like that, I do think that's a good idea for what they have in the Horus Heresy, and we'll see. Maybe it's a test run for what they do for 10th edition 40K.
Yeah, it definitely could be. This is getting added to the game line, kind of like a third main game. Age of Sigmar, 40K, and now Horus Heresy.
Yep.
So I definitely could see the things that are received well in this edition being ported over to 40K.
And that's what they did with Age of Sigmar too. Some of the things from the early ages of Age of Sigmar where it was in a rough state.
Yep.
There were a few shining things that stood out of that, and they did port those over into 40K. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So far, I'm pretty optimistic that the rule set for 30K is going to be solid. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I can't wait to start playing games. I know people have been playing games with the leaked rules, and the reaction has been fairly positive so far. So I'm excited to be able to play.
Another question, just because I'm thinking, well, eventually we'll probably try and do a battle report on the channel.
Yep.
Maybe a smaller one because we won't have so much for the Ultramarines.
Yeah, but you have Custodes, so we can do...
We do have Custodes. We have a 2,000 point Custodes army in the works, so maybe you'll seal them.
Yeah.
One thing, did they shrink the game size, Matt, for 40K or for the 30K?
I don't believe they did.
So it's still a 6x4.
It's still a 6x4. Like I said.
Interesting.
Yeah. Games of 30K tend to skew much bigger than games of 40K.
Interesting. Maybe I should have known that before I bought this mat. Because this mat is was it 50 by 44 or? Yeah, 50 by 44. And okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good thing to know. I later I want to check that out because that I would be a little shocked if they didn't because they skewed it down for every other game. But anyway,
I'll check.
We'll check.
That could be changed.
So last thing I guess we want to talk about is a little bit more on the model side.
Yeah.
And then that'll kind of wrap us up here. So for me, I will say this. I do like that it's all plastic, or not everything's plastic, but it's going to plastic. That was my biggest reason for not doing it. The models were expensive. I just don't like messing with resin at all. It's okay on some things, maybe some upgrades of resin, but I'm not a fan of resin. I like the smooth plastic.
Smooth plastic.
It just feels a whole lot better to paint and work with and convert with and everything. So
yeah,
I'm very happy it's going to plastic. Personal gripes I have with the models themselves is nothing on anything but the Tactical Marines themselves. I don't like, but I understand why the shoulder pads are their 50-50 split.
Yes.
Sam will also can gripe about that.
Yeah, that is purely, if you look at a tactical squad right now and you look at the Mark 6 Pauldron, you'll notice that the studs, instead of being perfectly spherical, will flatten out towards the rim. And that is purely because of like the technical limitations of casting that type of stud on that type of curved surface.
Yep.
So in order to get around that, Games Workshop split the Pauldrons in half. But what that means now is that when you build 40, 60, 80 Tactical Marines, however you want your list, you have to glue together
all of the shoulder pads.
Yes.
Now it is only the left.
It's only the left one, but
you have to glue them together.
You have to glue them together, and you've got a giant seam down the. It looks bad, which is why if you look, there's some close-ups that we'll post.
Yeah, you'll see.
I have 3D printed shoulder pads because I saw that and I immediately went to Pop Goes the Monkey and placed an order because I was not going to deal with that.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, but they make good shoulder pads.
But they do make good stuff.
Yep.
So that's gripe number one. Gripe number two for me, and I would be expensive to fix it, is I don't like beaky Marines. So I love the upscale. It for 30K, keeping it isolated in 30K, they look great. The added length to the legs really sells it for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what they did to Primaris Marines, but you'll see in a 360 that these things are still dwarfed by Primaris Marines. And that's okay for me because it's their own game. They can be their own way, and you wouldn't want them to be too much bigger than the standard Tactical Marines, which they're not.
They're not. They're just it's definitely it's a lot more in line with like the scale changes to Chaos Space Marines or the new Death Watch kit, where they're big enough to be noticeable, but not big enough where it's like
it looks out of place.
It looks out of place, which is perfect. But
so if I did this, it would be expensive, but I would want the legs of these guys and I would want the upper halves of, I believe it's Mark III. Are they the bucket helmet, the knight helmets?
Yeah, the Iron Warriors, or the Mark III Iron Armor.
Iron Armor? I like that a lot. So if I had to do that, it would be a weird mashing of those, which I think works just fine, because those are plastic as well.
They're plastic as well.
They're just still smaller legs.
Yeah, the problem, again, with that is that with the way Games Workshop does them is that, like, that is all one part, and then there's like a front plate that you have to put in. You could make it work. It might be a little hard. God knows I have enough Mark III sprues laying around. I could probably do some experiments when I get home.
I see that. It's not just a top sitting on the legs like they normally are.
Right. Games
annoying.
Workshop, they wanted to... I guess I can't speak to the design process, but the models are more in line with the current design paradigm of Games Workshop, where you have one body, and there are things you can do to the body, give it different weapons, give it a different head, but like the main twist and shape of the torso is the same.
Now, what if, I know maybe this is not, what if I just had different heads and different shoulder pads?
That would work.
There we go.
Yeah, because kind of the thing about 30K, so the beauty of 30K. So this was a gigantic galaxy-spanning civil war where units were fighting on their own for extended periods of time. They were cut off. They were, getting damaged and banged up. And so they might, down the line, my pauldron gets shot off. You rip the Mark III pauldron off of a dead Trader Marine. You slap it there. Your helmet gets busted. You replace it with the different helmet. Okay. Really, the only thing that you really can't do, which you still kind of can do, is Mark VII, which is the current Darth Vader helmet Space Marines.
Yeah.
Those only showed up at the Siege of Terra.
Okay.
Because in the lore of 30K, it was in development, and they took all the stuff when Mars fell and put it onto Earth and then finished it. So Blood Angels, Imperial Fists, and White Scars started showing up in modern 40K power armor. But otherwise, if you want to put a different head or different shoulder pads on your Space Marine, that's totally viable and makes sense. You can find pictures of Black Shields or Shattered Legions where they've just got a big mismatch of power armor.
Yeah. Let me know in the comments if I were to do a Legion of Marines, what should I do? I know it's between the three. If I did Chaos, it would be Alpha Legion. If it's Loyalist, it would be between Blood Angels and Salamanders. Those are my favorite three. I just don't know which one. And my only problem is my technique for painting Alpha Legion is awesome on Marines. As soon as you try it on a tank, it looks horrible because I use a contrast or a method with contrast. So
I might have a solution for you if you're interested in pursuing that route. I think about these things.
So we'll try that. The rest of the models, I mean, all the dreadnoughts, almost all the dreadnoughts are going to plastic. We saw the Redemptor, Contemptor, Leviathan. Sorry, the Leviathan, the Contemptor. It seems like the special weapon upgrades, like the close combat weapons, are going to stay resin. I think I'm okay with that if it's just the claw that's resin and not the whole kit, because the claw is much easier to work with on a resin one. That's cool. The big tanks being resin is awesome because you don't have your two big slabs of resin that could warp and wiggle. Yeah.
It is. The one thing I want to see go to plastic are going to be the aircraft, because like a Spartan, there's problems with warping. Like if my Spartan, if I put it on a flat surface and tap it, it wiggles. Because wiggle because the two sides are misaligned. But like when I built my Fire Raptor, which I actually have never shown off on the channel, I should change that someday. That was just agony, because it's two very long, thin panels of resin. That just are just curved, and ask anyone who's ever built a Fire Raptor or a Storm Eagle, it is an agonizing process.
Probably painful. One last question, because we're talking about it. Are flyers common in 30K, or are they more or less in 40K? Because
more common.
More common, okay.
Because that's I believe we've actually talked about it on the channel in the past. Flyers in 7th edition or Age of Darkness you need to specifically have an anti-aircraft weapon, a rule with the anti-aircraft weaponry rule.
Right.
Because instead of just being a -1 to hit, you have to snap fire, which means you have to hit them on 6s.
Sure.
Yeah. So flyers can be very powerful because if you don't have anti-aircraft weaponry or a flyer of your own, flyers can essentially operate with impunity. So you tend to see either you're going up against a flyer, so you bring your own, or you don't. I've also had, this is probably my favorite anecdote relating to a flyer. So in 30K, Mortis Dreadnoughts, the Dreadnoughts with the 2 same ranged weapons have a rule. They have an anti-aircraft where they can basically declare like they're going into anti-aircraft interceptor mode.
Oh, okay.
And then as soon as any aircraft come on from reserves, they can immediately shoot at them. So I was playing a game against a Raven Guard null deploy, nothing started the table turn 1, which is something you can do in 30K. And he had, his whole army was in a Storm Eagle. It was like his special characters, Terminators, and Apothecary. And it came onto the table, and it just immediately got shot by a las cannon and crashed and burned and killed like 1,000 points worth of models in one giant fiery death ball. So
funny.
So stuff like that, crazy things can happen, but that's my favorite flyer story.
Awesome. Well, I think we've covered without going too in depth.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think of 30K. Are you thinking about dabbling into 30K? And of course, 30K can be played in 40K. It's not like these things are unusable. And I'm curious, since we're saying that, if they will start to port over some 30K options into 40K now.
I think Games Workshop would be foolish not to. You already see it with the Kratos. It got a 40K PDF data sheet. It's okay.
Yeah.
Most of the weapons are pretty bad, the main weapons, but I don't think this is me knowing Games Workshop. They're not going to make these models and not make it so that a 40K player can buy them, because they want to double dip. They want the 40K players' money too.
Absolutely. So yeah, I will definitely continue to do a little bit of Horus Heresy here and there, maybe a battle report here and there. It will most likely be in addition to our other content. So let us know what you guys think. Are you going to play it? Are you interested to see us play it? Sam will take the reins on this and
of course
and go. And if I dabble into 30K, we already know you have now your Ultramarines and your Iron Warriors. We will actually be Iron Warriors in 30K. Calvin is probably going to have his 1,000 Suns. He has both 40K and 30K 1,000 Suns, so they will make an appearance. If Connor ever does, Dark Angels is what he has already chosen. And if I do, it's going to be between Salamanders, Blood Angels, Alpha Legion, and I will throw in Emperor's Children just to have another balanced. I'll probably do Loyalist if you have 2. Well, you're going to have one of each. Calvin have one. Yeah.
That is one thing I will say. Games Workshop ixnayed my Loyalist Iron Warrior special character, Kirvalin, which breaks my heart. I know.
Do they have like a Legends tab for him?
They will eventually, I think, but he's not in the book anymore. So that made me very sad to see, but I digress.
So let me know what you guys think. We'll continue to dive in. Put some stuff down in the comments. We'll try and respond to it there. And that's all we have for this video, for the first video of the Horus Heresy. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.